Girl, you the best, and she love me when I'm in it, and she never be pretending, nothing is real. She gon' tell you what she bought it, cause she know you can't afford it. Know you can get it, looking exquisite, no competition, stay on a pivot. Who be watching, they be plotting, she so motherfucking independent. Mama be big, got on her grind, she had to get out her mama house. Daddy be tripping, now she be whipping, ain't no more on granny couch. Fashion over, got that ass looking different, make me wanna put her all in my mentions. Feeling like she was sent from above, got me asking the Lord for forgiveness. Walking with confidence, look at her ambience. The reason these hoes be talking her IG, I stalk it, but never comment. This just common sense. It's splendid, girl, I'ma give you the business. Tell them the money business, the ride is tenant. So she ride me when I'm in it. I'ma be back in a minute.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the E-Spot with Camille. I am your host, Camille Cower, and tonight's guest really needs no introduction because, oh my gosh, I can't wait to just talk to her about all the different stories that she goes through during her book. Like, I've taken so many notes and let's just go ahead and bring her on up. So, best-selling LA Times and New York Times best-selling author, as well as won numerous awards for her book, The Nurse's Story. Carol Gino is my guest. I'm so excited to have you. Thank you so much for being my guest. How are you this evening?
I have two different, you're going to laugh because I have two different voices coming in at the same time.
Oh no. Do you have any of your FaceTime or YouTubes open by any chance?
Hi. Okay, now it's
There we go.
I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
great. So wonderful. I'm glad we got that fixed early. So again, can you hear me? Oh no.
I'm getting a double, you're going to laugh. I'm getting two
Oh, you're getting me twice again?
I shall check again.
Uh-oh.
It doesn't look like I do, but I will be happy.
Let's see. How's everyone out in the audience? If you can let me know how you're hearing us. Is everyone hearing us okay? Are you hearing
Somebody
double?
is talking in the background that says, "Is somebody hearing us?"
Yeah, that's me saying it.
Oh.
I was making sure everyone could hear us.
Because now I can hear my voice.
Now you can hear your voice. Okay.
Yeah, now I can. Let's see.
Uh-oh. All right, we're having some audio issues, so bear with us. Let me know in the comments if they can hear us okay. I don't know what could be happening. Carol, do you have more than one? Do you have any other tabs open for?
Nothing.
Nothing else
Wait,
open.
let's
Okay.
see. Let's see. I'll try. Yeah.
Bear with us.
Now it looks sort of right.
Can you hear me okay? Or am I still doubled?
This is the same thing that you had said before. Do you have any other tabs open? And I don't, but try again.
Okay. How's everything now?
Good.
Oh, great. Okay. Well,
Sounds like it's good. It sounds like it's good. Yeah.
Yay. I don't know what happened, but the technology angels finally gave us mercy. So, Carol Gino, I'm so glad to have you. It's such an honor to have you. Best-selling author, LA Times, New York Times, but like you're a healer, you're a nurse. You worked in the trauma unit and ER unit, and right now more than anytime we really know how important nurses are and how essential the medical field is. But then again, I just have to say thank you so much for being my guest tonight. And I really, truly appreciate you. And tell everyone how you got your start with nursing even.
Oh my God. My start with nursing. That was funny. Actually, you know, Camille, that I have friends in and out of body, so you know that angels direct my life. I just take whatever step. And the funny thing is that from wanting to be a saint, I wound up being a major feminist. And then I was mad like when I got divorced because the prince had a drinking problem. He was a lovely man, but and I wound up in nursing school because I saw Florence Nightingale. Aside from that, I loved nursing with all my heart. I really did. It's it's the greatest. It's actually has always been my biggest passion to be able to serve and to help people. I know it sounds hokey, but it's so much more real when you understand how connected you are to another human being and how enough you are just being yourself when you're able to help somebody who can't do something do it for them, you know. So that was lovely. But how that happened is after I did it for about 16 years, I thought to myself, oh no, if I don't give people some information, they're going to go down the tubes because they don't know what's happening in healthcare. So that's when I decided I was going to write. And I went to Hofstra and New School for social research. And one of the last cases I had before I started writing was I was called to do private duty for Mario Puzo, and I was just coming off 3 really tough cases. And I said, no, I don't want to go. And she said, you have to go. They want one of their own. I said, one of their own what? She said, well, you know, he's Italian. I said, yeah, but what does that got to do with me? They want one of their own. They don't want a stranger. I said, oh, all right. I said, what's his wife's name? And she said, Erica. And I said, Erica for an Italian? And she said to me, no, no, she's German. I said, none of this makes sense. So, but at any rate, the call to family came and I went and met her and I took care of her for a bunch of months. The whole family actually took care of her. And I got to love her. She was really a lovely woman. And he asked me one night, I asked him if he could teach me to write. And he said to me, writing can't be taught, but it can be learned. I said, well, I'm a quick study, so teach me. And at that time you would laugh because what had happened was I was talking to Erica one night before she had died, and I said, what upsets you most about this? Are you frightened? And she said, no. She says, I just hate to leave them on their own without anybody to watch them. And I said, I'll keep an eye on them. Don't worry about that. And Mario said, oh, after we're going out a couple of years, he said, so you did this all for Erica? And I said, some more or less. And so he said to me, well, thank you. He says, I'm sure she'd be tickled. But yeah, and after Erica died, what Mario said is, you really should write a book about nurses because he said, when the doctors can do no more, nurses are the ones who save the families. You know, so.
Yeah. Now, like, so when you were coming up with the book, The Nurse's Story, I mean, what did you feel was so important that patients need to know? Because I saw a theme over and over in me and Mario where it was important that they armed themselves and you kept using the terms like warriors for patients and they're the true heroes. Like it just really felt like a war, us versus them type situation almost. And I wondered what more, or what was maybe your goal from the nurse's story that patients should know, or even people maybe entering into the medical field should know um, about it from your
Well,
perspective.
so much, Camille. I mean, the fact is that now I did some of my best nursing as an LVN or an LPN because the fact was that there's more time for patient care. But the nurse patient ratio is absolutely so important because if you had a sign above an emergency room saying, we don't really have enough doctors to treat you, how many people would come to that hospital without screaming? And yet, the floors are so little staffed with nurses, and they're the ones who have to deliver the care, especially now when there are fewer doctors in attendance all the time. You have hospitalists who don't know the patients as well. Nursing has such educational needs, and do you know they're the only professionals that come out of a hospital budget as an expense? So anytime a hospital needs to make a profit, they can cut nursing. Nurses mostly don't have unions except in California and where occasionally, but that means that any other job, even maintenance, has unions. If a patient throws up or has an accident in the hall, a nurse has to clean it up because maintenance is not allowed to touch human excreta. And so there's very little power in nursing. And nurses, because they're so dedicated to their patients a lot of the time, are afraid to walk out. And we haven't really learned to team well enough as women. You know, for a long time, it was mostly a women's profession. And guys know how to team better than women have.
Why do you think is that? Because I mean, even from working with
You want
Mario,
the
which we'll
truth?
get to. Yeah, no, that's what
Want the
we're here for.
I'll tell you why. Because
Yeah.
women will fight with each other over a bad job and a bad man. They don't own their personal power, so they let it be compromised too easily. And then they take a lot of their image of themselves from an external world because they're into so much service and so much caretaking and stuff that they don't have enough. Their role is an extension of them a lot of the times. And so then they become fearful of losing a job. And you know how it is in corporations where they say, we don't have enough nurses and we're losing nurses, but they won't raise the pay on nurses, but they will pay doctors, you know, and stuff like that. It's a really, look, American healthcare is 46 on the list of 50, and we pay for ours. Come on. If a nurse isn't there to fight for you, patients don't know enough because the doctor will come in and tell them something, and they use so much medical ease that a patient doesn't really know what they're saying, and they're already feeling crushed and vulnerable, and they don't want to offend a doctor because they're in their most vulnerable position. They don't want to get a doctor mad. So if they don't understand, and if a nurse is busy doing paperwork to cover the S's of a profit-making hospital, you know, how much time do they have to spend with the patients? So they don't, it's almost invisible. You know, Mario wrote me a screenplay of the nurse's story called Gwen, Go Wherever You're Needed. And the people who wanted to do that was like, I got a contract from Aaron Spelling and one for Baywatch. Now, would I do that to nurses? You know how they'd be presented.
No. Oh, but I could see Shonda Rhimes doing it, the same lady that does Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
But you know,
nurse's
the
perspective would
problem
be
with
great.
that, Camille, the
Yeah.
problem with that is that while nurses have been voted 17 years in a row or something like that as the most trusted profession, most ethical profession, they're almost invisible in what they do because you don't see what's monetized. It's almost like saying, okay, we'll tell you the housewife story, and they
Or your
lose
Nurse
as much
Jackie story.
status,
Yeah.
right? And most of the time, if a nurse doesn't know what a doctor does, that doctor never gets to see the patient because the nurse has to be smart enough to call the doctor when you're in trouble, you know? So I've been talking for 30 years about advocating for patients and saying a defenseless defender is no good for the patients. There needs to be a team between nurses and the consumer. I sold 1 million of those books at least. And the public bought them and at least learned about some of the rights they have. But you shouldn't have to do that if you have a lot of nurses have a calling and they want to take care of patients. I have a niece who's a nurse now who comes home and cries every day because she has to do so much paperwork that she has to ignore patient needs, and stuff like that. And until patients start fighting by asking, what's the nurse patient ratio in your floor? Will I have a chance to be taken care of? That's a big thing.
It's so important. So I'm in a union. My husband's in a union, and it's like that being able to have that collective voice
Yeah.
against big consumers because my husband works for UPS, and during like all that was going on, it was like Christmas for them again. So they were without anybody to speak up for the fact that they're working 70 hours a week, that they need some time off, that like they're getting injured, they're coming home, they're tired, they're having accidents on the way home. Like, there's limits to this. You have to treat people correctly. And it's the same with nurses. It's the same in the film industry. It's a constant theme that people just make these assumptions because it's a passion
Right.
driven or
But
service
Camille,
industry. Yeah.
look at how often we heard that nurses weren't getting enough PPEs.
Mm-hmm.
And every
They were in
day,
trash bags.
right. And
Right.
every day, even now, I know nurses who they're still not checking to find out if nurses have had all the testing and if their patients that they're seeing has. They don't have retirement after they work a long time and
Yeah.
stuff like
Pension.
that. Yeah.
Or
None of,
even like with so my husband, he was adamant about not getting the vaccine at first because there was that stipulation that basically if you die, they're not on the hook for it. He's like, why
yeah.
would I get something like that? And there's a lot of times nurses are those ones that are exposed to all these deadly viruses or pandemics,
Hmm.
diseases, or even just regular illnesses that can be
Hmm.
that are contagious and so on, that and just thinking about the fact that maybe 10 years, 20 years from now, something could pop up that maybe at the time didn't notice, and there's no way to cover them that way either. It's mind blowing. I had no idea because
Yeah.
I just assumed all nurses had unions and were protected that way. But
California has one. There may
ouch.
be a couple of, but California has the union, but a lot of places do not. And the other
Mm,
thing is, this is going to be horrifying. I hate to tell you this,
mm.
but around at least 250,000 to 300,000 people die every year of hospital mistakes. And they know that if they have more nurses, they have half the mistakes. And still they don't hire them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can check any of the how many patients die of medical mistakes in hospitals.
So
You
I know
know,
there's like certain things that are higher than others. And it's not always like the things you think, because you always hear the celebrities that die from like liposuction or something of
yeah,
that. And it's not always that case. It's sometimes like just overdose of medication or giving the wrong medication, or even I think there was something about in other injuries as well. But
yeah,
wow. Was this
yeah.
all covered in your book or even in your screenplay? Because we need to make
Well, in the
have
screenplay,
to.
I just kept that back. One
Mm,
day I hope that somebody with a real conscience wants to do it. Right now, what they're doing is they're giving female doctors the place. When was the last time you saw a doctor play a guitar for a patient? On their bed. It's the nurses usually who have to take care, and stuff like that. But nurses just are underserved, underrecognized, and they have all the responsibility with just none of the power that they should have to be able to help as much as they can. Because remember, you've been a nurse for 20, 30 years. You know stuff that the young residents and stuff coming in don't know, and stuff.
yeah.
And a lot of the young doctors now are really giving some credit to before it was the doctors who we weren't collegial, but at least they were our enemy at the time. Right now in healthcare, even the doctors are being disempowered, so we
Mm.
really need a redo. We really need a redo on that. And that's why I decided that telling stories was the way to empower people, because so many of us who look like we're living ordinary lives are
Mhm.
living. I met so many heroes when I was a nurse. Heroes that were fighting the greatest dragons with dignity,
Yeah.
that and it's all under the radar. And before they take us now to the next step in our evolution, if you will, by making us perfect, by implanting chips and stuff like that, I do wish that so many women especially would tell their stories, because on the sides of the cave, when they look back in history, I want women's stories to be told. I really do, from a woman's point of view, because so much of our language is language that hasn't even been developed yet. How do you know when you get a gut feeling? I knew when my patients were going to be okay and when they weren't. I would tell doctors, this patient is not going to make it. And they would fight with me about, in fact, one night, a patient he came in, he was burned. And I was doing private duty on him that night. And he was on all kinds of machines and stuff. And a doctor came down at a certain point when the machine stopped registering everything. And the doctor said, "Oh, I get no pulse or anything. Take him off the machines. He's dead." And I said, No, I don't believe he's dead. And the doctor said, "Really? He's dead. Look, the Doppler, we have no heart. I said, "I know, but he's still in the room. I'm telling you, the man is alive." The doctor grabbed a hold of me. He said, "Carol, get a hold of yourself." I said, "He's still in the room, man." He goes down to the nurse's station to write out the death certificate. And I go over to this guy and I say, Tony, listen to me. You got to breathe or they're going to put you in a refrigerator." Nothing. I go down to his feet and I scratch his feet and his feet move. So I run down to the nurse's station and I say to the doctor, "Tony's alive. His feet moves." He says, "Reflexes." I said, "Reflexes." Okay. I went back again. I said, "Tony, listen, you got to breathe. They're going to put you in a refrigerator." We went back and forth about this. After a couple of minutes, he breathed. So I went down to the doctor and I said to him, he breathed. And I said, "Don't tell me reflexes." He came back and the guy breathed. They wrote this up in Nursing Magazine years ago, just to have people be sure. It's not like I don't see death as a promise sometimes, because I do, but I knew that man was not dead. And he lived 14 hours after that, and they did an EEG and everything to make sure he was dead at the time. But he would have been in a refrigerator for 14 hours had there not been a human there to say, "I feel him here," Yeah.
Wow. So, just from your expertise, what would you say is a good, Olivia asked, like, what would be a good nurse to patient ratio? What should we be fighting?
It depends on the unit, but if you have I worked in a lot of intensive care units and stuff, but if you're on a floor, there was a time I was on a floor and I had 36 patients with just me, and I called the interns and the residents and said, "Hey, you got to come up here and help me if you want these people to live till morning." But what I'm saying is, when you hear that they're short staffed, that should be something you should judge your hospital and ask them if they have enough nurses to take care of the patients. I think that's an important thing,
No
really
kidding.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, because when they're saying that they're out of beds, they're not talking about how many doctors and nurses.
Right.
So
That's
add that in.
that's one of the big things. And then they should ask doctors, they should really realize that they are hiring doctors to take care of them. And as doctors, sure, sometimes they're going to make mistakes, but they shouldn't be making mistakes because they're so overworked and overwhelmed that there's no way a human could do it. So law shouldn't be our only. But you know that about so many systems we have going now, huh? I
Yeah.
think this whole COVID thing is a spirit reset. Like, get your lives together and figure out as human beings what's important to you. And I was able to see, after being with Mary a while and being able to see a lot of stars in action and stuff, and what movies could do to help heal people, I was finally able to see writing, art, movies and stuff as healing tools, as waking people up and being able to entertain them and make them laugh, as an antidote to the fear that everybody feels, and stuff like
No,
that.
yeah. Well, let's back up a minute because you mentioned Aaron Spelling. And for those people who may not know, Aaron Spelling is he was behind a lot of 80s and 90s TV shows like LA Law, 90210,
Yeah.
like a lot of the nighttime soap opera shows. So that's
And
what she meant by
yeah,
not wanting him behind her nurse's story. And of
right. Or
course,
Baywatch. Yeah.
Baywatch, it's still
Yeah.
on.
But
Now I think reboot.
yeah,
And
it
then
was,
Mario that she keeps referring to is the Mario Puzo who wrote The Godfather 1, 2, 3, and many other books. And you also mentioned the Fortunate Pilgrimage, Fortunate Pilgrim, excuse me. Uh, so but you can share more about him than anyone else because you were his writing
what?
partner, his
Yeah.
confidant, his love, everything in between for
Yeah.
20 years until he passed. So
Yeah.
yeah, share that part of your
Yeah.
life.
That,
Yeah.
Mario was great. I mean, he really was. That, and God is funny too. Whoever God is, source creativity. They would take a radical feminist like me and put her with the head of the most romantic patriarchy going, And I don't know, Camille, whether I ever told you this and stuff like that, but one night when I was staying over his house and we were he was doing some of Godfather 3 at that time, and he had written a scene about Sonny coming in to his apartment with a girlfriend, and there were three thugs who broke in, and they said something like, they grabbed the girl and said something like, "Give me your money or I'll slit her throat." And Sonny said, "Fine." And Mario thought that was so funny. I said, that must be a guy's joke because I missed it. But what happened is I was sleeping over that night and a real burglar broke in, and he was a masked burglar. And 4 o'clock in the morning, on the way to something woke me up, and I figured, all right, I'll go to the bathroom. I looked at the time and I thought 3 minutes after 4. Wow. All right. I got up and I walked past the study to go into the bathroom, and there standing a huge guy. He must have been 200 pounds. He was 6'3" or something, masked. The only thing I could see was his eyes. He was wearing all black. He was holding one of those mag lights and stuff. This is now, I swear to you, this is how spirit does it. I look at him and this is what I say. I see a Tai Chi circle around him, and I know I'm not going to step in that. But I look at him and I say, "What the hell are you doing in that getup?" He seemed so familiar to me. And I'm telling you, I mean, it's enough that we're all connected. But I look at this poor guy and I say, poor guy who is, oh man, he was a bad guy. He really was. He
Yeah, like
raped a bunch
3.
of 14-year-old kids, took them out of their house. When they finally caught him, and the big angel told me that I had to do my part because they would catch him and he wouldn't see freedom for a long time.
And for the
When
record, the
he,
rest of the story is in the book.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Since you left it kind of on a cliffhanger, the rest of the story is in the book. You can Google about this guy. He really does exist. The
Yeah,
likelihood of him happening to cross path with you,
I know.
unbelievable. But go ahead,
Right.
please. Yeah.
No. So yeah, all of it was in there. Anyway, what it was with Mario is that, am I not supposed to tell the end of that? You don't let those
No,
poor
no, no. You
people.
can tell. No, no, no. I was just saying, like, as far as some of it, like some of the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
details up
Oh
into like
yeah,
when you
yeah.
met him and all
Oh
of
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
and getting Mario and the
Yeah.
knives and there's more to
Well,
the story.
I know it
But
was
yeah, that's what I'm
really
saying.
funny,
And then
but
him
actually,
getting caught. Yeah. So
right. Oh no, that was a big story. And when he got
mm,
caught, I mean, he wound up getting 322 consecutive years. So you know he was a bad guy. But nobody, I'm telling you, it was like so weird how, that's why I believe that you can probably affect your reality, but do I believe you can manifest it all? Man, I was such a dope going into this whole thing that if spirit hadn't thrown one step in front of another for me, I wouldn't have known where to walk. And
mhm.
since then, I mean, I've had like 8 bestsellers or something. I have a lot of, and what they do is they show me movies that I just have to write.
Yeah. So what is your process? So since you brought up it shows you movies in your head, how does that process start for you? Because 8 bestsellers, wow, like
Yeah, well, it's
people
like,
wish for one.
Yeah. I didn't know when I did hit the bestseller list with Nurse's Story. I went in the bathroom and cried. They were having a big party for me. And I thought to myself, but I've been telling people about these people all along and they didn't want to hear. And it was like watching a beautiful sunset. And then when I took a photo, everybody told me how beautiful the photo was. But I wanted them to know the people, and stuff. And I thought, oh my God, if they had known that serving other people, taking care of other people, being really knowing people, past their egos, past that kind of connection, it's so rare. It's so rare to get that. If you get an opportunity, man, to serve, to take care of somebody, relish it, because it's as close as you're ever going to get to God, whatever that means. It's just a big feeling. It's just a big feeling.
Yeah. So how did you transfer that into writing? Because so many people want to become authors or writers or screenwriters. I know I have a lot of friends that are either starting the journey in screenwriting or have written a lot of great TV shows and want to are still looking to keep it going. And
Yeah.
you've worked with some of the best. I mean, Mario, he didn't just do all
Yeah.
the Godfathers. He also did a lot of great other movies like Superman, 2
Yeah.
and 3 and
Earthquake. Yeah.
Earthquake, and then even yourself, like, you've worked on so many great books, so I'm just
Yeah.
when I
I
got the chance, I gotta find out what is your process?
Well, let me
Yeah,
tell you what Mario's was first.
right,
Mario
the
used to lay on the
carpentry,
couch. He used to lay on the couch, and I would say he used to read constantly, a lot of books. He went through
ferocious
20
reader.
books a week, easy. And he'd lay on the couch, and I'd say, because we had this big study room that he built, like a pink, by the way, pink palazzo room, right? On
I love it.
stilts. So we were looking at treetops all the time. And I'd say, Mario, what are you doing? And he'd say, working. And I'd say, I don't hear anything. And he'd say, oh, I'm not typing yet. I said, oh. He said, no, I got to wait till my characters show up and then I type. So that's how and he's the one who said that he would never collaborate while he was writing until he was dead. And the funny part about that was I finished the book, The Family, for him because he died. And that was the only book that I put completed by. I wouldn't let them put Mario Puzo and Carol Gino because I knew that's not what he wanted. It was funny. But he was sort of amazing. My process is different. It was like I woke up the other morning and I thought somebody should write a book called Pitfalls and Potholes on the Path to Awakening. That's how my stories start. I get an idea and I think, oh, that's like your triggers or your teachers, that kind of stuff. I
Mm.
get, or I listen to somebody and they say something like, truth has no shelf life. And there's a whole story that just comes up around that.
Yeah.
Or, how 80% of our brain is uncharted territory, which means that we have sensors in it that have not yet developed. And between the denseness of our physical world, there are subtle planes of consciousness that we've never learned to tune into. You know how they say if you're blind, you can hear better, or if you lose your sight, you see better. We're so distracted by our physicality that we don't spend enough time going in. And I'm able, Mary used to say to me, oh God, that's spooky. I'm able to see myself in different times. Like when we went to Venice, that's in
Mhm.
the book too. Venice is one of my favorite places because it was the one place I could see myself in time and in eternity. I mean, I knew how small I was, but I knew how big I was as part of humanity.
Yeah.
Neither of us can swim. Neither of us could talk Italian. We're in the
Wait, wait,
middle.
wait, 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 wait. So you can't swim and you can't speak Italian?
Right.
Neither of
And
you can speak Italian.
no, and we were on our way to Venice in a motorboat, and the only thing we could see was water. And so we had taken, my girlfriend with us who had gotten breast cancer, and Mario said, ask her if she wants to come and see Venice with us. And I said, man, you're a real make-a-wish kind of guy, huh? And he said, yeah, let's take her. So we took Franny with us, and she was so excited. She said, come look, come look. And I said, no, I'm afraid I'll drown. Mario said the same thing. But then she said, come on, it's my shot. So we went up and we were looking out of the top of the motorboat, and we couldn't see anything but water. And then suddenly, out of the water came the city of Venice, which to me looked like a pastel sequin dragon. I swear to God, it was birthed out of the sea. And so I started to cry, and I never cried about anything like that. And Mario looked at me and he said, what's up? You wanted to be coming here with somebody that you were crazy about? I said, no, dopey, they wouldn't need the props. I said, I just could see me in time, and I knew how little I was. And I thought of humans building this city on just, stilts.
Yeah.
And I thought, humans are so great when they can get it together, like that. And, stuff like that. It was the reason our relationship was so great is we could always get into a story. If one story didn't work, it was funny. I said to him one time, what do you think's the sexiest thing about me? And he said, your competence. I said, competence? He said, yeah. I said, that's not sexy. He said, it's real sexy, Carol. You don't know how sexy it is. So I said, oh, okay. But a lot of it was, I said, what do you think kept this going for so long? And he said, you're like Scheherazade. You always start one story, and I'm waiting to find out what the next one is, And it was funny because when he was dying, and I was taking care of him, I said to him, promise me that if there's something more after life, after death, you'll let me know. And he said, no. I said, what do you mean no? He said, no. He said, it'll ruin the mystery, and the surprise. But what happened is, you wouldn't believe this, Camille. What happened was when I got to do the Today Show, and he had promised me one time we were listening to Bocelli when he was not feeling well at one point. And I said, oh man, I'd love to see him in concert. And he said to me, I didn't think you liked concerts. I said, I hate concerts, but I love him. I said, he inspires me. He said, okay, I'll tell you. He said, if I'm ever free from pain and I feel wonderful and everything's going right, I'll take you to a concert, especially if I can hear well again. And I said, okay, great. So I was booked to do the interview. And on that same show, there was supposed to be Destiny's Child. When I showed up, I got there early in the morning. We were sitting in the green room, and suddenly a producer came in and said, Destiny's Child is canceled. We've got to fill in with somebody else. And I said, who are you filling in with? And she said, Andrea Bocelli. And she said, do you want to see him? I can take you to the kitchen. And he's right, you'll be nose to nose with him. He's right outside that window. And she took me there. And the whole time, all I was thinking of is, damn, he made it happen. I don't know how he made it happen, but he made it happen.
Yeah.
And it was Bocelli. And so when she did the interview with me right afterwards, I was crying like a dope. And she said, what happened? And I said, Mario, he always kept his promises. He didn't make a lot of them, but he always kept them. And so I told her the story on the Today Show,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what
So
song did he sing? Did it happen to be a song that was one of your favorites? I mean,
oh yeah.
wasn't that coincidental as well,
yeah,
was it?
time to say goodbye. Always,
Oh, of course. Wow. I'm getting like chills.
Yeah,
That's
trust those
amazing.
chills. Yeah, trust those chills. They're the truth. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. And the fact that it was Destiny's Child, whether the fact that,
I know,
I mean,
right?
it was like destiny right here for you to
Right.
have
Right.
the
Yeah.
concert since you don't like concerts, you had the
Right.
next best thing.
Yep. It
Wow.
was
But I
amazing.
mean, that was your life with him. I mean, that's so the book Me and Mario, which I just love it because I mean, I love the fact that you're so naive to a lot of the things that are going on because you were a nurse. You were very much into healing and those were heroes and TV and film people meant no one to you. I mean, you were in the elevator with Christopher Walken and didn't even recognize it until
I thought he was the doorman. You wouldn't believe it. I mean, I'm saying he was
you
not one of
hear these
the
stories, but you don't ever meet people and you're
yeah,
like, and you get the second chance. Like you get other chances. So it's not like, it's a
right.
one-off at the same time, but it's
It-
still a matter of you got the opportunity to live that kind of life of being a healer, seeing that, but then making the flip over to the other side of the world with well, I mean, you said even says it's kind of a dirty business with publishing and just getting your book made and traveling around with that and then traveling around with Mario in the film world and just seeing the VIP life. But I mean, it blows my mind even more knowing that you guys didn't speak Italian
yeah.
and with all you guys would have to deal with, and especially with all the Italian that's in The Godfather, because I had to rewatch it because I was like a kid the last time I watched it, which now in
Yeah.
2021 eyes and knowing you were a feminist, I don't know how you dated someone knowing that film
I
was at
know.
the height of popularity. I
I
mean,
know.
granted, a lot of times people are writing these films or performing these songs and they're nothing like their character. Like I interviewed Jeremy Piven. He's nothing like Ari Gold, which to
No.
my delight and and
I
at the
told you.
same time disappointment.
This is what Mario used to do. Anytime
Yeah.
there was a fight, because he hated to hurt anybody's feelings. So
Yeah,
anytime
yeah.
anybody had a fight about something, he used to send me in first. And I would
Mm.
say to him, "Aren't you the guy who wound up
Don?
shooting up people on Robert Moses and everything?" And he said to me, "Oh no, that's not the man I am. That's the man I want to be."
No,
He really,
I mean, he
I
just
never heard him say anything unkind about anyone. I really didn't.
oh, that's I
He
mean,
was
that's
funny.
amazing because I mean, you kind of figure somebody that would be able to write about these different characters would have to be someone that can kind of live in that world and be or not maybe live in that world, but just understand that world in a way where they could be almost like wallpaper in a way so they can get all those different stories. And
Mario
it's
was
interesting.
very
Yeah.
Mario was incredibly interested in humans,
Mhm.
all of them. He never thought of anybody as uh, less than. No, but even if they, whether they were educated or not educated or anything, he was very respectful. And he used to say that because somehow, because of psychology, it was much harder now to show evil. And a really talented writer had to be able to show the subtleties so that people could recognize it when they could see it. And he really, for him, The Godfather was a metaphor for American business because he said the mafia, at least if they shot you, the old mafia, the romantic mafia, at least if they shot you, they'd take care of your family. Here, you can have people working for a company for 45 years, they lay you off, and you've lost face, and you've lost your identity, and you've lost your family, you've lost everything, you know. So he was he was really quite humanitarian. He
Mhm.
really was. He was really a very, very gentle man. He was very kind. In fact, when I said to him, "Okay, if you're not going to tell me if there's anything after life, give me something that's going to help me through life," and
Yeah.
he said, "Okay, I will." He said, "Men are as simple as you think them to be." He said, "Don't expect them to be women, Carol, because if you expect them to be women, you're going to be disappointed." He said, "Because if a man tells you, if you say to a man, 'What are you thinking?' and he says nothing, he's really thinking nothing. If you ask a woman what she's thinking and she says nothing, you know she's plotting."
Look, nothing good.
Right. But he was
Wow.
funny.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
very funny. He was a
No,
very
that's
funny man.
so when you were
And
uh
go ahead.
no, I was going to say, so I know in the book you mentioned a lot that he talks about the carpentry of writing, and
Yeah.
then with screenwriting, it's writing short. And so I'm curious,
Yeah.
what was the big differences in for you even?
I can't write short. He
Mm.
tried to teach me screenwriting for a long time. And for me, the beauty is in the details of things, whether they're expressions or dialogue or, and screenplay writing is an outline for me, so and I guess maybe I'm more selfish. He was maybe more collaborative because you write a screenplay, and like I watched what he did with Godfather 3, and it was really good. And I watched what he
Yeah.
wanted it to end like. And I wrote in there, chapter 32, how he
Right.
wanted it to read.
Oh, I
And
haven't gotten there
it,
yet. So
you haven't, all right,
no,
then
no,
I'm
no.
not
I'm
going to tell
only
you about it.
I'm at
No, I won't tell
31,
you. Right.
I do
32
believe.
probably is where I tell what he really wanted it to be. And you'll see. You've got to tell me after that what you think. Because I
No,
know his ending would work,
so, but
much
I
better.
know that the ending that they have now, he did not like. So, what was the big fight with him and Francis Coppola? Because I mean,
He wouldn't
now
fight.
looking at the cast list, you can see it's like peppered with his family all
Yeah.
over it. So,
he- Well,
yeah.
no, he didn't even mind. I don't think he minded what you'd call nepotism as much. I don't think that was the problem.
No, I don't
I
think so either. It's Italian thing, right? To keep
Yeah,
it in the
no, I
family.
don't think it was that. But what I think it was Mario was afraid for Francis's daughter because he was afraid she would be criticized because
Mm.
everybody'd be looking at her, compared to Winona Ryder, who was supposed to do it. But Johnny Depp wasn't happy about that, so that went to me.
Ah, so that's
But
what happened.
yeah, and so I think he was worried about that, but he loved Francis because Francis put Godfather 1 and 2 on screen. When I would say to him, "Why don't you fight for what you believe?" and he'd say, "No." He says, "A movie is a director's medium. I'll write my book where my name will be on it." And when you like, like even in Cotton Club, he wanted it to be a buddy movie like Sundance, and what happened is they made it different somehow,
Yeah.
and it became a gangster movie again. And he wasn't, by the time Bob Evans got through rewriting it and having his girlfriends rewrite it and all that stuff, it wasn't that at all. And I remember
Yeah.
one day he said to me, "Pick up the phone and listen to this." And Bob Evans said, "I've got an idea." And he said, "What?" He said, "Have the pavement fall out." And Mario said, "For what?" And he said, "We just have the pavement fall out." He says, "It's like, it's an adventure thing." So he said, "So I have another idea, relationships." Mario said, "See, that's what the movie business is like."
Well, it's the 80s. There was a lot of things going around in the 80s.
Yeah, it was very weird. It was very strange. It was
It's a
strange.
very different time. Like,
It was.
talking yeah. I'll
It was
never
strange. Yeah, it was strange. But I did
Yeah.
realize that there were, like, Valerie Harper was the greatest. She was such a doll. She was so
Mhm.
for real. And there were many for real people.
Yeah.
There were many not for real people, but there were many for real people.
Well, what would be some of your advice for maybe beginning writers or beginning screenplays? I mean, because you got to see from maybe he
Like
didn't consider himself the godfather in Italy, but he was definitely the godfather, at least in Hollywood, for having
somebody
deals
asked him.
done.
Yeah,
Like,
somebody asked him one time. They said, "You know, you're a legend, don't you? How do you feel about that?" And he said, "I can't relate to it at all."
hmm,
So he was very separate from what he did. He
right.
wanted to be a literary writer. But like he said, and I think this is an important point, that the failure of him as a literary writer, even though he wrote two books that they considered minor classics, he only made $5,000 on those books. So he had to sell out to write The Godfather. And selling it out was what brought him to his true gift as a storyteller. And
Mhm.
so if we can hold tight enough to our dreams, if we can let nothing deter us from pursuing that, and if we can hope for divine timing and destiny, you can get to the place that you're going if you're called to be there. But in the meantime, it's so much better to live within your dream than succeed at somebody else's.
Yeah. I mean, I don't consider it a sellout. I mean, it's not like he went corporate, he's
But
still
that's
a
what,
writer. Yeah. So I'm like,
yeah, but
what was it to him
he
selling
wrote a
out?
commercial book. He said, this is
Mm.
some of his tips. You want to say carpentry. He said, what I did is I read everything on the bestseller list. He
Mhm.
said, and then I took the top three and I found out what was consistent in those three. He said, and then what I did is, like, if you read a book about Lincoln, it was on number one, and dogs were number two, and apple pie was number three, then you write a book about Lincoln and his dog eating apple pie. He said, it's like that. He said,
Yeah.
because he
Yeah.
said, otherwise, why should your readers indulge you in your eccentricity? Why should they want to know your problems rather than have you write to their likes and their
Mhm.
lives? And so he was really talking about targeting your market, really,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
writing to fulfill a market, you
Yeah.
know. But he
Now
had
it's branding
stories.
and going to your audience, as they would
Yeah,
call it.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly like that, right? Instead of, I all along kept hoping and just kept writing what I needed to write, you know?
Mhm.
Um,
Getting the voices out of you,
yeah,
right?
and at one point, nobody in 86 was publishing angel books. They just weren't. So he said to me, well, you obviously don't want to be a Mrs. for all the reasons that are in the book. He said, so why don't you be a mogul, start a publishing company? So I actually started doing independent publishing in 86, because there were books I wanted out there that I didn't want to wait and I didn't want them tampered with. Like when I wrote the nurse's story, they wanted to call it The Nurse's Tale, but there was a whole lot of stuff around stewardesses at that time and fly me. And I thought, oh no, no feminist would go for The Nurse's Tale. It's too sexually
Yeah.
loaded. So I can't say that. I had to fight so hard
Yeah.
to change it. I said, they're not going to know Chaucer. Let me
Right.
have story.
Right, right, right. So then so then when you think back even now for yourself with how everything like you're doing your book now with me and Mario that just recently came out,
Yeah.
how much has it changed, do you think, as far as like being a writer, being a publisher, getting your book out there, finding your audience and so
Well,
on? What advice
I
would you
I
give?
think this. I love independent publishing,
Mhm.
but you gotta know that it's a lot of work. Okay, but I got like 7% is the percentage I got with traditional publishing houses. 15% if it was hardcover. So you got to know, you got to do more work, but this is a much better time to be a writer. There's a lot of junk out there, but if you're really good, and you got to have an editor, you got to pay for an editor. That's the toughest
Mhm.
thing. You got to
Yeah.
get reviews. You got to learn the whole process. I want to do a course like on what Mario, I'm going to do a course on what Mario taught me about publishing and what I learned about, what he taught me about writing, what I learned about publishing and
Yeah.
marketing, so
And
that
even
people
making
really can
those
have that
deals.
voice,
Yeah. Well,
you
even
know,
like in your book, you guys are talking about he's giving you all this different advice on how to get what percentages. Like
right?
even the money that I can't think of what it's called now, but the money they give you beforehand, before the book even
Oh,
comes
in
out.
advance. Yeah.
Your advance. There you go. Sorry. I'm
Yeah,
like, not residuals. That's the word I keep thinking because I got a residual check today. It always happy day when
right.
that happens. But but getting
Yeah.
advances and so on, or
Yeah.
just there's so many different things I think for new people new to the industry or people that are just maybe they're just excited to just get their word out there, especially now for women. We don't negotiate for the rates that we deserve, and just having a man help you through that, negotiate through all of it, especially someone that's the Don, or at least considered the Godfather, even though he hated it. The
Camille,
reputation, it
right?
worked, okay?
Yeah. Well, that's
I'm
because
sure
he had
he cigared it out of
Burt
it.
Fields. He had Burt Fields as a lawyer,
Oh, there
But
you go.
the fact is that I was lucky that I knew enough to get back my rights from Simon
Mhm.
and Schuster and HarperCollins and all those people, so that all my books belong to me now, so that I can self-publish anything I want. And I even got a piece of Mario's from the Godfather's papers, where he talks about um, his young writing before he ever got famous, and how he felt about it and stuff. And
Mm.
I'm going to put that out.
Well,
I'm going.
what about the nurse's story? What about Gwen? Go
Oh, I don't
wherever
know.
you're wanted.
I'm waiting. I'm waiting to
Do
see
you
who's.
own that as well?
I own
Or
that
does
as.
Marie?
Yes, I own that. So
I can't
anybody who
wait for that
wants
to
to
come out.
do that. Yes,
I wish
I
I knew
kept
people that
it.
knew people.
Yeah, I kept that because I'm hoping for an enlightened woman or an enlightened man who believes in
Yeah,
women.
like Hello Sunshine, Reese's Witherspoon's
Yeah,
company would be really great,
yeah.
or even
If they could
Array,
make,
like yeah.
and he said, oh, this is what he gave me as advice, Camille. He
Mm.
said, if you're gonna, maybe it'll be worth something once I'm dead, Carol, but if you pitch it, remember to pitch it like this: it's the Three Musketeers and D'Artagnan. He said, that's how you pitch it, because that's what it is.
Okay, now I gotta rewatch. Well, I don't know the last one. What was it?
D'Artagnan was the new musketeer, apparently. We'll have to go. I'll go watch the movie too.
Okay, because I looked even for when you mentioned that The Fortunate Pilgrim was the best writing he did about women. I was looking for that and seeing that Sophia Loren was in, and she's one of my
Oh yeah.
favorites. She did
Yes.
a great film this year, a beautiful life, a wait for life. I can't remember what it's called, but it's really good. It's in Italian, funny enough.
Yeah.
But when I saw that she was in, I was like, oh, I gotta find this. So I'm really excited to see
Yeah, I
that, but
think
also
I had
just to
to buy
see.
it. I think I
Yeah.
had to buy it on DVD or something like that.
Okay.
They had it someplace, but I loved it. I thought it was really good. He didn't like it so much, I don't think, but I think that was because Sophia Loren was his mother in this, and I mean, you don't
Um,
want to see your mother in some of those positions.
and especially someone as beautiful as Sophia
I
Loren, and
know he loved her. I know
you
he
don't
so
wanna hear
loved
anybody
her.
talking about your hot mom.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, I have a
right,
hot
right.
mom, so
No,
I understand.
I know. It was very funny. It was really funny.
And I
That was
have
a
to
fun.
say, like, The Godfather, and even with you working on the family and different things, like, I noticed just from watching the movie, there's so many parts of it that are quoted in other movies, other shows, or even I felt like the way that The Godfather 3 ended reminded me so much of Game of Thrones Blood Wedding, without going into detail on either. If you've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
either of those, you know what I'm talking about. And but just so much of, I mean, so much of it, I feel like it's been reused, whether it's in music or
Right.
just it's just one of those, like, cultural
Yeah.
icons, and just knowing that you were a part of all of that and getting to travel through all of that and going to Monte Carlo and Cannes and just in
And
Niche
go
and just
Mario there was great, because
yeah.
the thing about Mario that was great too, is he was excessive in everything.
Yeah, he wasn't cheap.
So,
So,
so
what was your
he,
favorite? Yeah.
it, anytime we went out to dinner, he would order five of everything,
Mm.
so that in case you didn't like one thing, you could have another, and stuff like that.
Especially
And
since he couldn't read the menu either, right? Might as well just
right.
take a chance.
We couldn't. And he walked around with this big cigar, and he'd just nod, and everybody would be very, very, everybody would be completely, completely stunned by him, and they'd bow. And wait till you see in that book, we had to go into Sicily, and he made me walk behind him with the guide, because He was just nodding, you know, and you could see all these old guys sitting playing bocce and they'd all nod, you know, like that. Oh my God, it was hysterical. I mean, it was so funny. All of it was funny, and it was fun, and it was, you know what? I think I don't believe in manifesting your life because my life was so much bigger than I could have imagined it to be. I could not have. I mean, I went from welfare to Westminster Abbey. I mean, and when we got to see Shakespeare in Stratford-on-the-Avon and stuff, as we were coming out, Mario said, "Phew, thank God we got that out of the way." And it was so fun because he never forgot how poor he was. And he never forgot how holding a dream for long enough, it would happen. And he held his for long enough. He was 48 years old before he got The Godfather out.
Oh, wow.
So he was poor all of that time.
Wow. Wow, with 5 kids too.
Yeah, and borrowing money from his brother all the time. His brother, who used to take the subway while Mario used to take a cab to borrow money.
Well, I'm glad he sold out, you know, for the
Yeah.
record. And I'm sure a lot of the careers that were catapulted from that film, whether behind the scenes or in front, because I mean, like, like Nicolas Cage, like at the time, people didn't, since he used a different last name than his real last name of Coppola, like that's what I mean. Like they're just peppered throughout there. Like you just can see so many different people related. I was curious with your family or even with Mario's, have any of them also ventured into the entertainment or publishing or writing, or do they work with you as part of the team as well? Is there any truth to that as well?
They live on Long Island, and he spent time. He was really good. He wanted to keep his family a real family. He didn't like to mix that stuff, you know, and stuff. His daughter Dorothy is a director, though, and she did a couple of good movies. But other than that, his kids, one's a lawyer. They really were very family to him. They all added to helping us write all that time, you know, because they took care of him, so we had a lot of time to work together, you know. And when he said to me, do you want to marry me? And I said, oh, I don't know. He said, do you want my name? I said, no. He said, do you want to live with me? I said, no. And he said, do you want to come over and cook my meals all the time, fix my bed? I said, Mario, you out of your mind. And he said to me, do you want to be a writer? I said, of course. He said, you do realize in all of those things, the only thing you said yes to was being a writer. So he said, so I said, well, marriage doesn't have to be like it was. We could have a new definition of it. And he says, yeah, but I listened to those answers, he says. And he says, I know you believe in justice and fairness. He said, if we play it your way, what's in it for me?
Yeah, he was saying that marriage, if women understood it, they wouldn't want to get into it or something to that, like, yeah.
No, he said
It's a
it's
bad
an
bargain.
institution. He says it's an institution and wives are owned. He said, and what would I do with a wild horse? But let me tell you what he did in the meantime, Camille, because this you're going to laugh yourself silly on. 3 years he had me have an architect and everything else build up plans for a house we could have together with separate wings, east and west wings and everything for me and him and the whole bit, whether we were going to share a kitchen and the whole bit. Do you know it took 3 years for me to say to him, Mario, I don't want to do this. I don't want to, even a $3 million house, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. Like, I'm good.
Yeah, but that's how he would do it. He was a master at strategy, you know. And the fact was, the great thing with us was, if one of us won, both of us won. It always was a win-win, because one time I was saying to him, I was fighting with him about something because he doesn't fight. He just would not fight. And I would say to him, Mario, behind your obvious humility. You know what the flip side of that coin is? Your arrogance. And I ran into the bathroom to cry. And a couple of minutes later, he came and he knocked at the door. And he said, Carol. I said, what? He said, honey. He said, do you know what the flip side of your arrogance is? I said, what? He said, more arrogance. And we both fell on the floor laughing.
Well, it takes some arrogance to be able to stand up against doctors, right? They have that God complex.
My
And when
God.
you're fighting for your patients, a true nurse warrior like
Right.
yourself, you got to do what you got to do. But
And
I'm
it,
just realizing the time we went 6
right,
minutes over.
right.
We have to do this again.
We
I've
will.
loved every minute. So please tell everyone how they can keep up with you, where they can buy your books as well. And
Easy,
yeah,
carolgino.com. That's it. That's
easy.
my website. I have a couple of groups like Soul Star Academy. I have the Me and Mario page. But go to carolgino.com. That's quick. And I have a lot of stuff on there and a lot of pictures.
Yeah. Oh, the picture. I love that you included pictures in here because I
Yeah,
mean I
yeah.
had So
Wait till you
we'll talk a
read
lot online.
32. Wait till you read
Oh
chapter
no, I just took my
32.
bookmark out. Well, I'll just have to start all over. No, I'm kidding. I just took my bookmark out, but I know I was in chapter 30, so I
Yeah.
had just started it. So it's
When you
perfect.
get to 32, talk to me.
Uh, I'm going to talk to you before then, but I couldn't
Okay.
talk to you before we went on air because we're friends in real life. I couldn't talk to you before we went on air because I was so scared that I would end up chatting with you and forgetting to ask it on air because I'll think I already asked you because a lot of times we talk, we're on Zooms and so on. So now I can go to Zooms again
Yes,
and
and you can focus.
not risk avoiding you for the fear that I'd be like, nope, I'm gonna ask her stuff. I gotta wait for him on air. Nope, I can't handle it because this book is amazing, Carol. I mean, of course, why wouldn't it be? But this is my first introduction to because I'm dyslexic. So reading books, you have to be really interesting for me to do because it's like torture.
I know.
And it is. And this is fun. And it hits my ADHD because you're like all over. Like you guys really go to all these fun places and exciting. So I definitely recommend for those of you out there that are looking for a summer reading book or early spring or late spring. Me and Mario. See? Mario and me.
Yeah.
Me and
See?
Mario. Because
Yeah,
she's a
me
feminist.
first.
Women first.
Yeah.
Hint, hint, Mother's Day is coming up.
Yeah.
So thank you again, Carol, so much for being my guest. And
Thank you,
I do
Camille.
believe The Godfather, for the record, is on Showtime if you're interested in watching it and catching up and finding out all the things that was going on in the 80s and 90s
Yes, yes.
and where all these careers started. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank
Ciao,
you.
Bella. That
Yes.
I don't know what that means, but maybe you don't either.
You're right.
Like I was like I had this whole Italian thing I was gonna say, and then you were like, "Oh, I don't speak
You
Italian,"
say
and neither
it
does
right.
Mario. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, because my mom speaks Italian,
Right.
so well, like a little bit from travels,
Yeah.
but
No, my father was into you have to assimilate.
yeah, that's what they
Yes.
did to me when I moved to America with ESL. They told me I could only speak English, so
Yeah.
that's all I speak now is English,
Yeah.
broken even.
Oh,
But
well,
yeah.
hey.
I mean, you
Yeah.
can't tell now because I went through speech pathologist, but yeah. Huh. So
Yeah.
your dad was told that as well.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
he told me that while he read me the Harvard classics. And to tell you, talk about arrogance, when I first heard Plato say something like, the wisest man alive is the man who knows enough to know he knows nothing. When I
Mhm.
read it, I was like 9, and I said, hey, I thought that first. I had no idea about history.
Well, when you're young,
I
no
know.
boundaries, right?
I
And that's what makes it so beautiful that you really
know.
are limitless in what you can believe you're capable of.
Right? Right?
So why not?
Let's try it. Let's
He
do
was
it.
totally plagiarizing you.
Yeah. And it took me 20 years. It took me 20 years to say, yeah, I got to tell people what Mario was really like because he really is a Renaissance man. And he really
Yeah.
was the kind of man you would want today,
Right? Very
because
rare breed.
yes,
Yeah. And
yes,
to like bring your girlfriend along, like
Yeah,
I mean, you say the exact same thing about Make-A-Wish, which is, again, the truth never expires, right? Or it has no
right,
expiration date. But
right.
it's just like, oh, what a beautiful thing or a sentiment to be like, oh, let me bring your girlfriend along to
And
have a
wait till
great
you
trip and show her.
wait
Yeah.
till you hear what he when you read it in the book. Wait till you see what happened. Oh my God.
I can't wait. I can't
Yeah, I
wait
know.
because
I know. It'll
I
be
mean, it's
fun.
just excess and wonderful and just all the Hollywood names that are dropped as well by accident. And oh, okay. I was like, I just
Which,
happened to turn to a page and it was Spelling Productions, and on the next page it said Coke. I'm like, whoa, what are the
well,
odds? But it's Coke making jeans. It's Coca-Cola, not the other guy. But
well, that's
needless
what
to
I thought
say, there's a
anyway.
name on every page.
Yeah.
TMZ would love this book.
Okay.
Or the shade room or all of the above. I mean, I know I'm loving it. So thank you so much for penning it, for writing it, for living it, and just
Yeah.
really taking the risk with, I mean, who knew? I mean, a Hellman's trick would lead to all of this.
Right.
And
Goes to show.
it's so funny. You've ruined mayo for me, which is one of my favorite condiments next to barbecue
Oh
sauce.
my God. I know. I know.
Which plug,
Everybody.
nice barbecue company. But yeah, so again, thank you, Carol Gino. It's been a
Thank you,
pleasure. We will
Camille.
talk again. Ugh,
Yes.
I keep
Yes.
wanting to say bye and then saying more, so I'll really end it right now. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.